responded to the test. Do you expect to enter paradise without undergoing the same test as those before you? They suffered hardships and adversity and were so shaken up that the messenger, natural, Sajjan, speak quiet, who can all hear. They suffered hardship and adversity and were so shaken up that the messenger and those who believed with him said, where is God's victory? Indeed, God's victory is always near. Okay, so the idea here is to worship God alone no matter what happens, under all circumstances. It's a matter of knowledge. You come to the conclusion that God is one, and He's the only master, He's the only one that benefits or harms. He's the only one who controls the minds and hearts of the people around you. He makes them love you or hate you or care about you or don't care. And with this knowledge, it doesn't matter what happens. Adversity or happiness, it's a fixed, definite knowledge. And you know that. It doesn't matter what happens. So also, we are here for the test. And God wants to be proud of you and wants to show you off to the angels and say, look at my servant. He or she worships me no matter what happens, without ever seeing me. And this is the whole idea of our existence. And the end of the verse says, indeed God's victory is always near. It must be noted also here that after the test, there is a final test. After the final test, there is nothing but kingship on earth, as God promises. When you come to the conclusion that you worship God alone. And it takes a long time. The road is long and hard. It's a continuous struggle. But there will come a time when you're a perfect worshipper of God alone. Then there is no hardship. And we can see this in Surah 24:55. These are some of the verses that you must remember all the time. Page 243. The great promise. It says, God promises those, verse 55. Page 243. God promises those among you who believe and work righteousness that He would make them kings on earth, as He did for those before them, and that He would establish for them their religion that He chose for them, and that He will substitute security in place of their fears. All this because they worship me alone, without idolizing anything besides me. If anyone disbelieves after this, then these are the wicked. Batural, come and sit next to Daddy. Sajjan, sit next to Mommy. Then we'll have no noise. Now Jamila is free to roam there. See, this promise is true. Now, do you remember Job? Job had lots of hardship, adversity. But once he passed the test, he recovered, his health recovered, he recovered his family and even twice as much. He recovered his wealth and twice as much. So he was under the test for as long as he needed to be tested, to prove himself. And the same is true with us. Also, we must think of adversity as a cleansing and polishing process. When you join the oneness of God alone, you expect some trouble at the beginning, because you're cleansing all the past sins, all the past errors. And this can be cleansed only by paying for them in this world. So all the adversity that you have at the beginning, you come join this mosque, you're going to have 5 or 10 years of adversity. And this is because it's a polishing process. Polishing, you know how polishing goes. They take a piece of rock, they put it in polishing machine, very noisy, shipping off pieces. But then what comes out is a beautiful gem. And that's what will come out as after you go through the polishing process. Polishing is not easy. So what I'm saying is that there is a final test. Also, if you look up Surah 65, verse 3 and 4, verses 4 and 5.
What would they?
Page 401. Page 401. Verse 2. Let's look verse 2 at the end of it. It says, whoever observes righteousness towards God, he will create an exit for him. An exit from every problem. And provide for him whence he never expects. When you observe God, you sacrifice a job or a source of income strictly for the sake of God. He will provide for you whence you never expect, and you better believe it. Surah, page 401. The end of verse 2. This is a verse I want you to remember. Whoever observes righteousness towards God, he will create an exit for him and provide for him whence he never expects. Anyone who trusts in God, God will suffice him. God always carries out his decisions. You have come to the conclusion that God is the King, the absolute ruler of the universe, and he will carry out his promises and his decisions. You just have to believe it. You must have absolute confidence in it. Tomorrow there is a mandatory law, insurance law. And we have, quite a few of us have decided that we have insurance with God. But if you are with God, you have the best insurance. And you just have to believe that nothing will happen to you when you have insurance with God. This is the insurance. The difference between the insurance companies and God's insurance is that in God's insurance you don't have anything happen to you. Your car, your health. With the insurance companies, you will have the accidents, and the insurance company will pay for you. You have the agony of the insurance, of the accident, and the inconvenience of losing the car for having an operation, and the companies will pay. But you just have to have the confidence that when you have insurance with God, nothing will happen to you. Also, you must know that if God wants to get you, he'll get you, whether you have insurance or not. God says they cannot escape from me. That's what you said. Deserve a pinch, or a little accident, or a little sickness. You can't get away from by the insurance company. Yeah.
How about when you go register the car and you the question you
Yes.
Yeah.
When you have to, then you have to. We will not buy insurance unless we have to. But it appears that God is already taking care of us, because the law enforcement people, the prosecutors, are all protesting the law, and they are making an official case out of it. They say they will not enforce it. They don't want to enforce it. So I called the Civil Liberties Union myself, and I told them this contradicts our religious beliefs and everything, and they didn't do anything about it. So we will not buy insurance until we have to. Because the Quran says if you have to eat pork or drink wine or do anything, if you have to, without being malicious or deliberate, then you're not committing a sin. But what I'm saying is, when God says, "and provide for you whence you never expect," you must know that. You must have that confidence. If you have the slightest doubt, it will not work. And this insurance business, we're in it. We've been in it for a long time. I mean, we had that conviction to the extent I told you about our friend Tariq when the guy says, "Look, insurance. Who's your insurance with?" And he said, "I have insurance with God." It was his phone number. He didn't. He didn't. He wasn't thinking. I mean, it was the natural question coming afterwards. But then, of course, he was stunned. Because he had a pencil in his hand and the paper. He was ready to write the phone number. It was a tune-up place where Tariq's car was a little bit. The fender was bent a little bit. Somebody hit it. So God always carries out His decisions. He's the absolute ruler. He runs this country. It's not run Reagan, he runs with the government. Or any government, anywhere. God runs everything. If you go to the end of verse 4, it says, "Whoever observes righteousness towards God, God will make everything easy for him." Everything will go easy for you. You will not suffer any hardship. There's absolutely no humiliation for the servants of God. You go apply for a job and you'll be the boss because your soul takes over the place. And you'll see them running to serve you. They may not realize it, but you'll see it. Whoever observes righteousness towards God, God will make everything easy for him. This is God's promise as documented here in His final message. So we go back now to page 23 about hardship as a mandatory test. Over and over we see people who are immensely wealthy on the TV and they're complaining about unhappiness, how unhappy they are. Yes.
Is there an explanation then for, we talked about this the other day about the flood zone in Louisiana?
Yeah.
We all know Louisiana has problems. That's really severe.
Right. All these severe problems, earthquakes, hurricanes, floods, all these are punishments and tests. Because all these things are absolutely controlled by God. There is a statement that will answer your question. It's in Surah, I believe, 64. Let's look up 64. Surah 64 plus or minus 2 surahs, so I'm going to find it for you. Yeah, 11, verse 11. It says, "No disaster strikes except in accordance with God's will." This is the law. No disaster strikes except in accordance with God's will. No pain, no disaster, nothing happens except by personal decree from God. Because it is not simple. It's not easy to get a painful headache, for example. It has to be a personal decree from God. That God will sign. And that's when it comes, it can be comfortable. Get a pillow or something. Then you're not crowded. Does this answer your question, Diana?
Yes. I sort of knew the answer. I had heard also that the flood zone only affected a certain income bracket of people. It only affected the wealthy people in the county or whatever.
Well, God is angry. It's true. Every drop of water is measured. Everything in this world is measured. Every piece of ice that fell on Denver was given miserable time. It was measured. Yeah.
They did say also that it's almost like the Nile, and the flooding is going to make that land even more fertile. So maybe the rich will move out because they're not, when there isn't making money, then they'll be all expensive.
Yeah. Everything is planned. The minutest detail is very carefully planned. Alhamdulillah. Nothing is coincidental or haphazard. Nothing. As individuals, as nations, as a world. Just think every drop of water is measured. Exactly where it goes. Where it's going to fall. How many inches from an ant that's crawling on the ground. That's right. Okay, Carl, do you want to take the recipients of charity, 215 to 218?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. They ask you about charity. Say, charity shall go to the parents, the relatives, the orphans, the poor, and the alien. Any righteous work you do, God is fully aware thereof. Fighting may be forced upon you, though you dislike it. But you may dislike something which is actually good for you, and you may like something which is actually bad for you. God knows while you do not know. They ask you about the desecration of the sacred months by fighting therein. Say, fighting during the sacred months is sacrilege, but repelling the people from the path of God and disbelieving in Him and in the sacredness of the sacred mosque and evicting the people therefrom are all worse sacrileges in the sight of God. Oppression is worse than murder. They will continue to fight you until they revert you from your religion, if they could. Those who revert from their religion and die as disbelievers have wasted their works in this life, and in the hereafter they have deserved hell, wherein they abide forever. As for those who believe, immigrate, and strive in the cause of God, they have deserved God's mercy. God is forgiver, merciful. So it's two different subjects here. The 215 talks about the charity, and it tells us specifically that the charity first goes to those that are closest to us, to those that we're most responsible for, our parents and our relatives. And then next are those that really need economic help or don't have someone else to rely on, the orphans and the poor, and then the alien. And
so this is a carefully, we are given the details of how charity should be distributed. First goes to the parents if they need it. If they don't need it, then to your relative. In other words, each takes care of his own. And if each one takes care of his own, there will be no misery in the world. If the relatives are rich, then you find orphans. Children who have no parents, one or two parents, are gone. And then any poor people, and then the end. So in this order.
So any righteous work you do, God is fully aware of it. And it seems that charity is more than just economic help. It can be any kind of help. And any righteousness of doing what is right in this world toward other people, even if it's simply politeness or anything that we try to do to make the world better, treat the other people as we'd like to be treated, or if we're merciful toward the people around us, than God is because we want to express God's mercy. We want we desire God's forgiveness and God's mercy, and these qualities, and by showing our appreciation, our desire for them, we express it toward the world around us.
Person from another town, transient. People are passing by.
And the next subject is on fighting, which I take to mean basically in a war type of situation, though it may be. Well, when we think of fighting, we think of taking up arms of violence rather than simply argument or those things. So at another level, it could be simply not giving in to any kind of oppressions, which may be economic or political or social, but
No, I have to put issue here. There's only one reason in Quran for fighting, and it has to do with the freedom to worship God alone. That's it. There's absolutely no other reason for fighting. Only if it's gonna interfere with your freedom of practicing the worship of God alone. And oppression meaning trying to impose any view, religious view on you, or to prevent you from practicing your religion. Throughout the Quran, the only reason for fighting. The fighting may be imposed upon you, like somebody comes and say, hey, don't pray. You cannot pray. The issue of Allah, you cannot pray.
But if your country gets into war with another country and you're required to go and fight, like you're drafted or anything?
You don't fight because of land, or because you're drafted.
Yeah.
The other
If
country
they
is here to
attack
make
the
you
house.
not believe in God. Like if Russia comes to invade this country for the purpose of turning everybody into an atheist, then that's in the cause of God. The only fighting is in the cause of God, must be in the cause of God. So whatever there are unforeseeable reasons or circumstances. But fighting for land, or because of borders, or because of countries, it's all a waste of life. Because God did not create these borders. He created visas and passports.
What if you're forced to defend yourself and somebody else wants to drive you away from your own land? You have to fight also. Or you just,
Well,
run away.
It's self-defense, but it is in the cause of God. You think about it.
Yeah. I mean, if what it says about evicting you from your houses, or you evict them from where they evicted you, they not.
Once they evicted you,
If they're simply fighting, they're not perceiving religious reasons, they're probably perceiving grabbing land or for political differences.
Did we go through the rules of war yet? Because that will explain it more. Did we go through that?
About aggression.
Yeah, we did.
We spoke of aggression. That wars are only justified. All wars must be defensive. And we discussed that one.
Self-defense, yeah.
And defense.
But in those rules of war, they say do not fight them in the sacred mosque unless they attack you therein. Like we're sitting here worshiping God alone, and somebody comes and says, "Hey, you can't practice Islam." Or something. This is where we have to fight there.
You'll be surprised. Anything can happen.
We happen to have a formidable army around this building anyway, as you know. Brother Abdullah is visiting us from Seattle. And he's one rare person who comes because they were leery of the hadith business. So he came to see us just because we believe in the Quran alone. But anyway, what I want to tell you is that people try to deface this sign out there. And twice, but they failed miserably every time. So there are invisible forces around us. We don't need to do anything. This age is an age of mental debate rather than swords and fighting. Anyway, we can't fight because of land or money, and unless you're attacked anyway. Joining is something and fighting is something else. I mean, they join the armed forces, but they don't fight. It's like a job. So we have to fight. Really, the job is a means of supporting your to earn an honest living.
But if you join anything and you simply earn a living for something, that if it's part of an institution that's involved in something, it's not.
Yeah, but you don't know whether it's going to be
Well, you don't earn your living selling liquor, for example, which is breaking God's law.
Suppose you went to work.
He's asking about joining the armed forces. If you join the armed forces and there's no war, it's just like any job.
But suppose your government gets in a war with another country and you're...
That's when you have to make a decision whether this is because of God or not. Because of God? Fine. If it's because of God, you have to do it.
Well, suppose you're working for a big company and they're producing something that, you know, like just... Well, or say napalm or chemical weapons. You know, maybe you're not directly involved in the manufacturing, but are you protesting?
There's no war, it's perfectly all right, because the Quran says prepare for war. Prepare the maximum power that you have. Be prepared. But war itself is, as aggression is forbidden. That's breaking God's law. So joining the armed forces or making weapons or anything that is not war is perfectly all right. And if it is war, then you have to make a decision if it is in the cause of God or not.
So it's okay to have nuclear armed race.
That's right. But if we didn't have nuclear weapons in this country, we can be sure Russia would be here in a week.
What about the
If it
idea
is
that,
over.
what about the idea that we trust in God to protect us?
Yeah, but God orders you to make weapons.
But if you really, it's like the Yeshua, the million one saying, if you really trust in God and you sent the weapons, the bombs,
When you
God
trust
will
in
eliminate
God,
them in the sky.
when you trust in God, you follow His commandments. And one of His commandments is prepare the maximum power you can muster. This is a verse in the Quran. You want to see it? I think it's in Surah 9. But I want to get you the index. Yeah, I meant to talk to you about this once before because you said trust in God and don't make any weapons.
Preemptive strike, which is attacking first.
Hello.
They call it preemptive strike. They
And
don't say
verse
attack.
41. 39, 41.
They can
I'm
use
not
them
so
either
sure.
way. It's a matter of strategy.
Surah 9, verse 41.
Yeah, no, it is a
Then
more
John-
straightforward verse.
We shall readily mobilize.
There's a straightforward commandment to prepare the maximum power. Surah 8, verse 60. Surah 8, verse 60. This is a commandment. You shall. It says this is page 124, verse 60. You shall prepare for them all the force and equipment you can muster in order to deter the enemies of God and your enemies, as well as others you are not aware of, while God knows them. Anything you expend in the cause of God will be repaid to you without the least injustice. It's a very straightforward commandment that says prepare. You must always have a deterrent force. So it is you trust in God, but you follow what He says.
It said 20 fed the 200.
That's right.
So there was an early battle in which the Muslims were greatly outnumbered,
Oh yeah.
and there was a sandstorm that was that the able to.
That's another one. But the Battle of Badr, look it up on the Encyclopedia Britannica. And they look at it from the strategic point of view, the logistic point of view, the numbers of each side, and they try to analyze it militarily, and this doesn't make sense. The Muslims defeated the disbelievers.
Also the Battle of Yarmouk, when they beat the Byzantines, they were outnumbered. And in the Battle of Qadisiyah against the Persians, it was the best army in the world.
Now those were
Full Persians.
those were actual battles where the Muslims were outnumbered 10 to 1. But we're talking about that the angels were fighting on the side of the Muslims.
We have enough weapons now to destroy 200 weapons. And we need to build any more.
Well, they are having effective techniques to nullify rockets, laser
And we can't satellites.
But back to God. Let's listen to God.
Okay. Oppression is worse than murder.
Instead of the soul.
It's an attempt to manipulate somebody's mind and heart, and to make other people follow one's own material desires. Whoever's the oppressor.
May I add something to that, with the permission? It's not just that they're trying to change your mind, but to make you revert to a situation of unbelief.
Yeah.
In other words, the Muslims now have come, they've arrived at the truth, all right? And for you to go from truth back to unbelief, that is what our staff is saying is the murder of the soul. So it's not a matter of just changing your belief, but it's going back to unbelief, which is terrible.
Yeah.
And Quran says many times, once you have the belief, many people will try to let you revert to unbelief. So that is, it's terrible, because the punishment for unbelief after belief is greater than just unbelief from beginning to end. I think Quran says that 2 or 3 times.
Yeah. It says it in the next
Yeah, that says,
line.
I'm
It
sorry.
says, those who revert from their religion and
Yeah.
die as disbelievers have wasted their works in this life and in the hereafter. They have deserved hell, and they are there forever. And those who believe immigrate and strive in the cause of God. So it's telling, I think, that if we are oppressed and we can't fight them, it's better to get up and leave and go someplace where we can follow or obey God's commandments. So I guess it's telling us to fight if we can, if not to try to get away from that situation. God is forgiver and merciful.
Yeah, excuse me. This is a very interesting verse because people have pointed out many times. I think they interpret this verse out of context. How can oppression or persecution be worse than murder, they say? But actually, if you read the whole thing, I think what it means is this. In the long run, going to hell is worse than murder. And I think oppression, I think this is what it means.
If you
But
die in the
some
cause
people
of
don't
God.
seem to care at this.
Oppression to change your belief is like taking you out of heaven, putting you in hell. It's a lot worse than murder.
But I don't understand why the enemies of Islam have used this against Islam.
Well, you have to take this in conjunction with the other verses
Yeah.
that tell us about dying in the cause of God.
Diana has a question.
Okay, with something like this, you would say they'll stay in court. I mean, we're here in America, so we have to take our law here and use it here.
Yeah.
So you would probably be convicted. Because you're not judged and convicted.
Well, this country is fanatic about religious freedom.
Yeah, but not Mexico.
Illegal. Yeah. Illegal. I mean, for example, zoning laws don't apply to you. You can have a church anywhere you want. Zoning laws do not apply. Tax law. But who needs them? Who needs them? If you have God on your side, God manipulates their minds and their hearts. So when they are prejudiced, they are only hurting themselves. So Diana, do you have a specific situation that you...
Well, no, say someone did attack you. You felt that it was something, that you would disagree with. You could say it.
Oh.
And would you be able to use this in court and get away with it? You'd have to go with self-defense.
You can't kill just like that.
Yeah, it has to be in self-defense.
Yeah.
Would have to be self-defense or something else.
Right. No, I mean, somebody criticizes your religion and you kill him. That doesn't even stand. Even the Quran will not advocate that.
I think I think also referring especially with the immigrants to the early Muslims who were still in Mecca, who were oppressed by the tribes and the pagans. The ones who didn't immigrate and they were being encouraged by this to immigrate to.
No, you're looking at one right now. I can't say the things I'm saying in Saudi Arabia or Egypt. I'd be kidding. The things I'm saying, you can tell by even the people here in this country from over there, when you tell them worship God alone, the Quran is sufficient, believe God, they fight you violently because you're attacking their God and their idol.
And I think it doesn't apply now, but I said also referring to that.
Immigration means you go to the spot where you worship God alone, freely, without interference. That's what immigration means. You're in a place where you cannot worship God alone, freely, then move out.
Get out.
Go to a place where you can worship God alone. Yeah.
There's this fellow in California who's apparently making loads of money off of Christianity and tax evasion. It's $30 million, and now they're trying to make their case.
Sure,
This is the extreme to which you can take it.
Christian.
It's a big business going. He's on TV every day.
People abuse the religion all the time. But you are all believers in God alone, the Quran alone, but you cannot say this overseas. In the so-called Muslim countries, you cannot say it. And if they feel that you will have any influence doing this, they will actually put you on trial and kill you. That's oppression.
you say a moment ago that the tax laws don't apply to it?
Tax laws, churches are exempt from tax laws. They don't pay tax.
Oh, I thought you meant that as a Muslim you don't have to pay tax.
That's wishful thinking. Very good, very good.
The whole of the United States will become Muslim in 24 hours. No, but the organization.
Yeah, religious organization.
That's practically
You finished, Carl?
I think so. Something else?
Any questions on the... You see the subtitle, submit to the omniscient? It's a very important principle in the Quran. You may like something which is actually bad for you, or you may dislike something which is actually good for you. You go apply for a job, you're a worshiper of God alone, and you don't get the job. Why? Because it's not good for you. That's why you go to apply for jobs and you don't care if you're going to get it or not, because you know that God will give you the job that's good for you. You submit to God. You submit to the omniscient. Omniscient means He knows what circumstances you will exist under every job you're applying for. So what you do when you're applying for a job is you knock on all the doors, and God will open the one that is good for you. So when you don't get a job, it is not something, it's something that you dislike it. But you may dislike something which is actually good for you. It's good for you that you didn't take that job. And you can think of a million things that you may like which is bad for you, and you may like something which is bad for you. So that's an important principle. That you are taking advantage of the fact that your Lord is omniscient. He knows exactly what is best for you. Intoxicants and gambling is prohibited. You're wrong, you said that.
Good subject.
They ask you about intoxicants and gambling. Say, there is gross evil in them, and some benefit for the people. However, their evil outweighs their benefit. They ask you of what to give as charity. Say, the excess. God thus clarifies the relations for you, that you may reflect upon this life and the hereafter. They ask you about the orphans. Say, the best thing is to bring them up as righteous individuals. If you mix their property with yours, you shall treat them as members of your family. God is fully aware who the wicked are and who the righteous are. Had God willed, He could have decreed harsher rules. God is almighty wise. But there's a commandment in verse 219, and it's straightforward. Commandment, God is forbidding us to have intoxicants and to do gambling. And God says there's evil in this, having intoxicants or doing gambling.
Tonight is a perfect night for this law.
Yeah.
Because people are out there inviting and drinking like it's gone out of style, while we are studying God's message, which each one of you gets 100 times the reward tonight. Because people are out there breaking God's law with intoxicants and gambling. A new lottery is out.
Okay, now,
Because it's a lucky 7. Started today, I think, or yesterday. Huh? Started Thursday? Yeah, Ahmed knows. He sells the tickets. The lottery is a perfect example of breaking God's law and what it does to you.
We got a real bad one in the mail today from Edward Mann or something like that.
Yeah.
You, Mr. Johnson, have won $1 million. He's for it up.
I wouldn't send it back.
Okay, now in this verse says, there is gross evil in them, and some benefits for the people. What could be these benefits, like, earning money from these things? I mean,
This benefit the
okay,
farmers,
can you
farmers
just-
who plant the grapes.
okay, can
See,
you
the Quran is,
consider that selling these things, for example,
yeah.
selling wine or, that makes profit, that brings profit to you.
The Quran is realistic. This is a good point. The Quran is accurate. And the Quran cannot, the Quran acknowledges the fact that some people, farmers, plant grapes and sell them, and lots of people have jobs because of wine and so forth. So that has to be stated. But God says that they have more evil than the benefit. The evil outweighs the benefit. Therefore, if we follow God's law, we have to eliminate those.
May I add something? I do not deny that this is one of the meanings, that it can give employment benefits to hundreds of people, no? As Brother Errol was saying. It can also means something else, over and above. For example, I noticed that in certain cases, when some people are feeling bad and so on, they give them a shot, a jigger. It could mean that also. To put them up is very cold. It can help them temporarily. But in the long run, it's bad if it becomes a habit. I think this is a possibility.
We're talking about medicine.
Yes, yeah, it's given in small quantity. And so this is a care that it